Section 9. Motorway driving. What should you do when you're joining a motorway? Give way to traffic already on the motorway. What's the national speed limit on motorways for cars and motorcycles? 70 miles per hour. Which vehicle should use the left-hand lane on a 3-lane motorway? Any vehicle. Which of these isn't allowed to travel in the right-hand lane of a 3-lane motorway? A vehicle towing a trailer. You break down on a motorway, you need to call for help. Why may it be better to use an emergency roadside telephone rather than a mobile phone? It allows easy location by the emergency services. You've had a breakdown on the hard shoulder of a motorway. When the problem has been fixed, how should you rejoin the main carriageway? Gain speed on the hard shoulder before moving out onto the carriageway. You're travelling along a motorway. Where would you find a crawler or climbing lane? On a steep gradient. What do these motorway signs show? And it's the slightly elongated vertically blue rectangles with the diagonal white stripes. They're countdown markers to the next exit. On which part of a motorway are amber reflective studs found? Between the central reservation and the carriageway. What colour are the reflective studs between the lanes on a motorway? White. What colour are the reflective studs between a motorway and its slip road? Green. You've broken down on a motorway. In which direction should you walk to find the nearest emergency telephone? In the direction shown on the marker posts. You're joining a motorway. Why is it important to make full use of the slip road? To build up a speed similar to traffic on the motorway. How should you use the emergency telephone on a motorway? Face the oncoming traffic. You're on a motorway. What colour are the reflective studs on the left of the carriageway? Red. On a 3-lane motorway, which lane should you normally use? Left. What should you do when going through a contraflow system on a motorway? Keep a good distance from the vehicle ahead. You're on a 3-lane motorway. There are red reflective studs on your left and white ones to your right. Which lane are you in? In the left-hand lane. You're approaching roadworks on a motorway. What should you do? Obey all speed limits. Which vehicles are prohibited from using the motorway? Powered mobility scooters. What should you do when driving or riding along a motorway? Look much further ahead than you would on other roads. What should you do immediately after joining a motorway? Keep in the left-hand lane. What's the right-hand lane used for on a 3-lane motorway? Overtaking. What should you use the hard shoulder of a motorway for? Stopping in an emergency. You're in the right-hand lane of a 3-lane motorway. What do these overhead signs mean? And you've got a 50 miles per hour on the left lane, a 50 miles per hour above the middle lane, and an arrow to go left, diagonally left on the right hand lane. And it means move to the left and reduce your speed to 50 miles per hour. 50 miles per hour. When are you allowed to stop on a motorway? When you're signalled to do so by flashing red lights. You're travelling in the left-hand lane of a 3-lane motorway. How should you react to traffic joining from a slip road? Move to another lane. What basic rule applies when you're using a motorway? Keep to the left-hand lane unless overtaking. You're travelling along a motorway. When are you allowed to overtake on the left? When in queues and traffic to your right is moving more slowly than you are. On a motorway, what's an emergency refuge area used for? In cases of emergency or breakdown. Traffic officers operate on motorways and some primary routes in England and Wales. What are they authorised to do? Stop and direct anyone on a motorway. You're on a motorway. A red cross is displayed above the hard shoulder. What does this mean? You shouldn't travel in this lane. You're on a smart motorway. A mandatory speed limit is displayed above the hard shoulder. What does this mean? The hard shoulder can be used as a running lane. What's the aim of a smart motorway? To reduce congestion. You're using a smart motorway. What happens when it's operating? You must obey the speed limits shown. Why can it be an advantage for traffic speed to stay constant over a longer distance? Your overall journey time will normally improve. You shouldn't normally travel on the hard shoulder of a motorway. When can you use it? When signs direct you to. What's used to reduce traffic bunching on a motorway? Variable speed limits. When may you stop on a motorway? In an emergency or breakdown. Unless signs show otherwise, what's the national speed limit for a car or motorcycle on a motorway? 70 miles per hour. You're on a motorway and there are red flashing lights above every lane. What must you do? Stop and wait. You're on a 3-lane motorway. A red cross is showing above the hard shoulder and mandatory speed limits above all the other lanes. What does this mean? The hard shoulder is for emergency or breakdown use only. On a 3-lane motorway, what does this sign mean? So we have 50, 50, 50, 50, and above the one on the left it says queue ahead. So it means use all the lanes including the hard shoulder. You're travelling along a motorway and feel tired. Where should you stop to rest? At the nearest service area. You're towing a trailer on a motorway. What's the speed limit for a car towing a trailer on this road? 60 miles per hour. What should the left-hand lane of a motorway be used for? Normal driving. You're driving on a motorway and have to slow down quickly due to a hazard ahead. How can you warn drivers behind of the hazard? Switch on your hazard warning lights. Your car gets a puncture while you're driving on the motorway. You get it onto the hard shoulder. What should you do? Use an emergency telephone and call for help. You're driving on a motorway. By mistake, you go past the exit that you wanted to take. What should you do? Carry on to the next exit. Your vehicle has broken down on a motorway. You aren't able to stop on the hard shoulder. What should you do? Switch on your hazard warning lights. Why is it particularly important to carry out a check on your vehicle before making a long motorway journey? Continuous high speeds increase the risk of your vehicle breaking down. You're driving on a motorway. The car in front shows its hazard warning lights for a short time. What does this tell you? Traffic ahead is slowing or stopping suddenly. You're driving on the motorway. Well before you reach your intended exit, where should you position your vehicle? In the left-hand lane. What restrictions apply to new drivers holding a provisional driving license? They can't drive unaccompanied. Your vehicle breaks down on the hard shoulder of a motorway. You need to use your mobile phone to call for help. What should you do? Check your location from the marker posts on the left. You're towing a trailer along a 3-lane motorway. When may you use the right-hand lane? When there are lane closures. You're on a motorway. There's a contraflow system ahead. What would you expect to find? Lower speed limits. When may you stop on the hard shoulder of a motorway? In an emergency. And now for the case study. You're towing a small trailer behind your car and joining the motorway from a slip road. The motorway is busy with morning traffic. Further along the motorway, the central reservation is coned off for repair. Lanes have been narrowed for some distance using cones and temporary reflective studs. Once past the roadworks, traffic speeds up and the left-hand lane becomes clear. You then realise that you've gone past the exit you need. Who has priority at the motorway slip road junction? Vehicles already travelling in the left-hand lane. What colours would these studs be? Green, yellow. Which lane should you use after the roadworks? The left-hand lane. What's the national motorway speed limit for your vehicle and trailer? 60 miles per hour. What should you do about leaving the motorway? Continue on until you reach the next exit. And so ends that section.